This is True North TV, powered by Communitech. From Waterloo Region, Ontario, Canada, to the world. The conversations you need and want to hear with interesting people on topics at the intersection of technology and humanity. Tech for good. Let's get started.
Thanks, Talia, and welcome to True North TV. And I'm Ian Klugeman, the CEO of Communitech and your host. We've got another great show lined up for you today, and chances are you won't recognize the name of my guest today, but that's kind of the point. The voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, are not heard often enough in our communities. I know this, you know this, and Tyra Jones-Hurst knows it too. Tyra is a self-described Black woman in charge, and she is launching a storytelling platform called I Said What I Said, that aims to amplify BIPOC voices. In her day job, Tyra is a marketing professional who lives, works, and blogs in Toronto, even though we've been trying to lure her to Waterloo Region. Her family history in Canada stretches back 14 generations to the Maritimes, where her ancestors have distinguished themselves for their service to the country and to Nova Scotia's Black community. Beyond her professional career, Tyra has a deep passion for the advancement of her community and a genuine love for the arts and communication. And through this Her New Passion project, she hopes to help globally transform the perception of BIPOC communities by making space for their voices. Tyra Jones-Hurst, thanks for joining me on True North TV.
Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, let's start with this new project that you're launching. I Said What I Said. Tell me, what's this all about?
Well, I really wanted to make a platform where people can come together and share their stories and in an undiluted and unedited way. I would say it all really started when, BLM really hit the fan. And we watched George Floyd, we watched everything happen. And there was a sense of helplessness that I felt, and not helplessness as a Black Canadian and not having opportunity advantages. I'll be very honest and clear that I have a great education, a great job, and I've been able to kind of make it, I guess you'd say, in this world. But I still felt like I needed to do something for, BIPOC people and the people that I talk to around me and make sure that our voices are getting heard. And activism in a way that's not necessarily going on the streets and protesting with everybody, but how can we make the world more diverse? How can we be more included? How can we have more of a space for people that look like me or, have melanin running through their veins, right? And I think that ISOS came along because I think that blogging is a great way to get your voice out there, but there's more than just me, right? There's a collective out there and more perspectives, more personalities, more stories outside of just mine that need to be heard that can really contribute to the diversity of the world. And, again, giving space for people to really tell their story. So that's how ISWIS came to be. And I always end it with a period because I think you should be strong in what you're saying. So it's I said what I said. And then at the end of our logo, a period.
Amen. I'm a big fan of the period that punctuates the statement. Why is it important that writers have access to a platform like this? What are the stereotypes that you believe need to be challenged? What are the problems that need to be solved?
I think that we're more than just our pain, right? And we're more than just the bad things that happen to us or the stereotypes that the world forces upon us. And I think that the biggest way to acceptance or the fastest way to acceptance is realizing that we're all human. We all have stories, we all have experiences, and we have much more in common than I think people expect. And I think once you remove the lens in the media and digitally, that takes us away from, being basketball players or R&B singers or rappers or whatever the stereotype is. We recognize that we're mothers and we have anxiety and there's, some depression there and there's financial success and there's job success and there's comedian, you know what I mean? Like we really do hit every single avenue. And I think it's important to have a platform that lets us be us in the best way and the truest way that we are to get more of that recognition that, it really comes down to everyone just being human, being the same, having similar experiences and really relating in that way.
Now, your family, of course, has got a long history in Canada. Tell me a bit about this.
Yeah, so I'm Nova Scotian, or my grandfather is from Nova Scotia, and he has many siblings. A lot of them have been hardcore into the activism. Um, Angela Davis actually came to Dalhousie and was talking about one of my aunts, Joan Jones. My uncle is Burnley Jones. He's a lawyer and did a lot for the civil rights movements, and I think that that's also what kind of put me in the spot that I am today. Is it's very different, you know what I mean? It's different from the Black Panther movements and, you know, the civil rights that was before. 2020 has different ways of activism and different ways for people to communicate and really relay change and create change. So this project really came through me looking at my ancestors, looking at my family and saying, how can I make the same impact? How can I, you know, change the world very differently, but for the same topic in the same kind of scenario.
Well, it's interesting. So you're Jones. I hadn't put two and two together. I apologize for that.
Mhm.
But so you've been passed the baton,
Yes.
and now it's your time. And how does sort of the history of the lineage uh, factor in? What is it you're going to be doing that's different? Let me put it this way: what is it that you know Canada and the world needs right now, as opposed to what it might have needed previously?
I would say more of a collective, and it's interesting because you said I'm a Jones, which kind of leads to that, right? Like it's usually one group of people or one specific person that kind of gets all the shine or gets to speak, or you know what I mean, that the spotlight is on. And yes, as a Jones, it really has been a lot of that. And I think that as the torch is passed to me, I think that it's less about passing it down to my younger generation and more passing it out to the world and all Canadians. And let's have other collaborators be looked at and not be like, oh, you're a Jones, it's a you're whatever, and it came from that, you know what I mean? So that we're broadening it and remembering that there's many more stories, again, many more people, many more stories that need to be shared, and not just such a minute or a really single focused lens that sometimes we often do. When there's that one Black person that speaks up, then we focus on them, but there's more of us, right?
Yeah, and I know I love the sort of the you know the focus that you've got on building a bigger tent. I
Mhm.
think personally, as you know, I am a white man, and I know that I've had privilege in my life that I've not earned. I've tried to respect that, um, and and I think recently a lot of us have been uh, going back and doubling down on thinking about the unconscious biases that we have of unlearning things, and I think also really looking to people to help us on the journey, help
Yeah.
us to understand what we need to do differently, helping us understand, what discrimination feels like. And then I think I think that we need that context in order for us to contribute.
Right.
This is not a I mean I'm old, and I remember growing up in the U.S., and I can't imagine 60 years later, we'd still be dealing with what we're dealing with in the US and around the world.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that in true Canadian fashion, I, I really, I really do believe, and I think there's a lot of people who are, who want to contribute. Where do you tell them? What do you tell them to start with? What advice would you give someone like me as to what I need to be doing and paying attention to and thinking differently about?
Yeah, I think a lot of literature and just reading, right? There's this interesting dynamic right now where it's like, you know, you can't lean on, or the expectation is not to lean on people of color to explain their experiences or to explain why they feel this way or explain how things are happening. And I think literature is a great point, because really it is still an explanation, right? Like someone is still writing their thoughts and their feelings down, but it's not necessarily for the pleasure or the benefit of specifically, you know, someone asking a question and me having to respond so that you get that. There's a mix of of you seeking out that knowledge and you wanting to know more, and other people being able to write down how they think and feel about what's going on. And then it's like a meeting of the minds and merging together, right? So I really think that literature of any type, and again, leading back to ISWIS, being able to access something where you can read about and then digest on your own time, digest on your own terms, and, you know, figure out what that means to you. But it also doesn't put the pressure on BIPOC people necessarily to have to perform for your knowledge, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. It brings us right back to the, I said what I said is a platform, which, is going to give an opportunity for to hear these different stories and hear the voices and to learn. Um, this is all, this Black Lives Matter. When you cast your gaze south of the border and even, racism exists in Canada. And what's your reaction? What's your thoughts about, or let me put it this way, what's your hopes that's going to come out of this?
The BLM movement.
Yeah, the BLM. What's your hopes about what's going to come out of the BLM movement?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, the benefit of the BLM movement is awareness that is spreading, right? I mean, everything that's happening within the movement and the feelings people are feeling, none of that is new, right? It's all things that we've experienced in the past, we felt in the past. But the difference is people are spending more time at home, so there's more of a lens and a focus on it, so there's more awareness around it. So, I mean, to answer your first question about how I feel, I'm angry, right? And every day I'm angry. And it's not a new anger, but it's an anger that's forced into the spotlight because it's the top of discussion almost everywhere you go, right? At the very beginning of BLM, you'll probably remember the amount of communications that were sent from corporations, from retailers, from everywhere, just like blasting out messages of, almost like that, I can't believe racism is real moments, right? And that in itself was a lot to get over, and it's almost like gaslighting, right? Like the people who have experienced it knew about it all along, and now it's in the spotlight, and now it's like, okay, maybe it is real. So I think that the hope I have at this moment and moving forward is that this awareness doesn't disappear, and that at least on a large scale, we've acknowledged that the problem is a problem. And now how we navigate and how we maneuver, I think, is still up in the air. But at least people have recognized it, and you can't fix a problem that everyone pretends isn't there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I too, when the BLM first came out and you get tagged with these things saying, take a pledge saying that you will, ban racism from your company, and I'm like, this reminds me of the ice bucket challenge. This is silly. This is not substantive, and I don't think this is something that we can solve. I think this is a journey that we need to go on. It's not let's establish a task force and solve this thing. It's a long-term, lifelong commitment, and it's going to be a journey. Everyone slapped a black square onto their Instagram account or their Twitter account and pledged that they would end racism. Obviously that's not it. I mean, it's important that I think that we stood together. We put our hands up and did say, we got a problem. But what can corporations do? What would you like to see, big organizations, corporations, even government do that would make a difference?
I think that you raise a good point, right? Like, we have the awareness, everyone did the square, so we have some kind of, solidarity to a degree. We have everyone's attention, great. I think at this moment, it's now time to make sure that we're checking ourselves and checking each other. And, like you said, it's a journey. This is for the long haul. And I think that also kind of leads back into what ISWIS is about, and just being open to changing your perceptions, being open to being uncomfortable, being open to checking yourself and noticing the little things you do, right? Because if everyone makes that change and everybody shifts their perspective and everybody does a little thing every day, maybe you ride a subway, and if somebody who doesn't look like you sits beside you makes you nervous and you move your bag, realize when you do that and think about that when you do that. It doesn't have to be, these performative tasks and these big things. And you're throwing millions of dollars at people of color and that's just going to fix everything. No, it's all in the little things that are ingrained into us, the little daily things that we do that we really need to shift and change. And I think corporations who are opening and making space for discussions is a massive thing to do. I know that my company does that. We have random sessions where people can literally just hop on for an hour and just talk, and it really is a safe space, or as safe as it can be at a job. Like, let's still be real about that, but a safe space where people can talk about how they're feeling and ask questions of each other and tell stories and really try and make that change in their daily lives and in the things that they're already doing. And I also would say a major shift of perspective that while we are not often given the opportunities, it's not because we don't have the potential for those opportunities. It's because they're often not given to us. So, shifting the perspective of like this victim mentality, and if you accept white privilege, or if you accept that there's racism, that everyone else is the victim and you're this big bad guy, it isn't about that, right? It's about leveling the playing field and equity and making sure that we all have the same exact opportunities, the same chances. And that's, again, why ICE came to be, to give us the opportunity to be able to write and not feel filtered, or not feel like we have to change what we're writing to match what an audience wants to hear, right? So it's just that level setting, and anything you can do within your life that level sets things, I think would be massive to create a change in the future, because we all know it's not going to happen overnight.
And personally, I think that, I'm on a personal journey, and I know a lot of other people who are on personal journeys. And so much of this is about that. So much of this is about what can we do to help level the field, and looking, like here at Communitech, we're talking a lot about, looking at our own bias and our own, and examining the decisions we make, things like moving the bag and things, and so examining the opinions we hold and the decisions we make, the language we use.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to go through and look at sort of, are there policies and procedures that are systemic, and we all should be doing all of that. As far as increasing the participation or advancement of BIPOC, is there something that we should be doing, from a programmatic perspective? I know a lot of people are rushing in saying we need accelerator programs for Black Canadians. We need, and I think we're less of a let's rush in and let's more really understand what's going to make a difference. What would be your advice to Communitech as far as what should we be doing?
I think most importantly is recognizing that there is a pool that exists of talented and capable individuals. And again, that's not to say that, more help isn't wanted or needed, because of course, but there are existing people who are talented. And, even when you think of culture and retention and getting people stay where they feel like they belong the most. So I think that people jump that step, right? Or they skip that step and they go, okay, we need to put in money here. We need to set up a program so that we can get, the future BIPOC people to come in. But there's an existing pool, and let's get them first, so that when you are reaching out to those future, when they do come to you, and when that opportunity does exist and they can be a part of your community or a part of your company, there's someone who looks like them, who thinks like them, who speaks like them, that makes them comfortable enough to want to stay, so that your company and your culture can then evolve after the fact. You know what I mean? I feel like if we continue to skip that step, if you think of males and females, right? If you had a company that was only males and you're like, okay, we need females eventually, and we're going to go to all these grads and we're going to get all these female grads to come in, that's great. But when they come and no one looks like them, and they don't have a friend they can sit beside and talk to about things, they're not going to stay, and you're not going to see long-term change. And that's more important than the fast fixes that I think people are focusing on right now.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And it just goes one more time. It takes us back to the importance of diversity.
Yes.
Power of diversity, and we've got all these studies that have been done. Our programming for the last number of years has largely been focused on supporting female founders, but it's the same. It's this notion of, we need to, I think, as organizations, we need to build organizations and companies where people feel like they belong. We need people to say, you know what, I belong here. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And then it also removes this, like, the white savior and everyone else is the victim lens too, right? Because again, the skipping that step is that idea that they need our help to be, right? And it's no, we are already that now. Just accept us, pull us in now, and then we can grow, right? So I think that's massive.
Well, and I think I think that was probably the initial response from a lot of organizations, corporations, was these are people who fix things, and I go back to we were talking earlier about this is not something you establish a task force and fix.
Yeah.
This is a completely different kind of journey, um, and yeah, I think the point about the white savior is absolutely right. We were reminded of this. There's an Indigenous leader in town, and he's open to our ideas, but he's very good at identifying what he needs from us and where we can help.
Yeah.
And we're doing some really interesting things with him. But it's about learning, and I think we all need to be we need to all be committed to really relearning and considering the things that we do, the things that we feel, the opinions that we have, the actions that we make, and that is going to be a good place to start.
And being uncomfortable, right? And knowing that if someone says something to you or challenges what you say, it's not good versus bad, or you know what I mean? It isn't that. It's time for dialogue. It's time for conversation. It's time to challenge each other. Even sometimes when people say people are too sensitive now or things like that, have conversations around that. You know what I mean? I feel like we tiptoe around a lot of the things that we actually need to discuss and really dive deep into, because this is a challenging topic. This is complex. So if we're going to pretend or simplify it all and just throw money and put up black squares and say, I'm not going to move my purse anymore, that's not enough. There's more that needs to be done, right?
And so much of it, again, as we have this conversation, so much of it comes back to the individuals and their
Yeah.
commitment, their own journey. We've already gotten a bit of training around sort of managing being a bystander. There's a lot more to be done in that regard. We've done a few things in the past around the notion of fierce conversations, which was being equipped and having a protocol whereby you can have these, you can be uncomfortable, you can have these awkward conversations, but there being a protocol where people are trained on either side, that it's not about the person, it's about the issue or the item. And I think that's something we need to collectively get really good at.
Yeah, I think that's massive, and asking questions. You know what I mean? There's this thing, and that's not to say to find every Black person whenever you have a question about something to go to them and ask it right away. But it's the same as when you're in a job, right? If you don't know how to do something or you truly don't understand, you go to the person you trust, whether that's your boss or the new colleague that has been teaching you the ropes and you have a relationship with. You need go to somebody who you can trust, who you can be vulnerable with, and then who you can set that the individual aside and really listen to what they have and have that dialogue. It's important. And if we continue, if white people continue to talk to white people about racism and Black people only talk to Black people about racism and BIPOC, you know what I mean? Is if everyone only talks to themselves, we'll never really create change or really have um, anything productive happen, because we're still excluding each other. And the point is diversity, and the point is for everyone to have a seat at the table, so that we don't run into scenarios where something is really in left field and everybody's offended by it. If we really just talked about it, we wouldn't even have those scenarios, right?
Absolutely. And one of my mentors right now is someone who's 24 years old, and she's helping me understand. So I really do believe that letting yourself be vulnerable, being okay with awkward conversations, and really just trying to learn in every way we possibly can. Which brings us back to this platform that you're launching. I said what I said, and how important it's going to be for all of those things. Tyra Jones-Hurst, I want to take an opportunity to thank you for joining me today on True North TV. It was great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, it's great to talk about my passion project and really see where this can go, and just build awareness and try and remove that us versus them, and still, have a collective, have a place where people can be safe, but not exclude anybody in the process, right?
That was perfectly put, and such a nice way to end this conversation. Thank you very much for spending time today. And thank you to all of you at home who joined us. We're going to be back next Tuesday at noon with the next edition of True North TV. We'll see you then.
Thanks for watching this episode of True North TV. To catch the next episode, subscribe to Communitech's YouTube channel today.